Fox 25's David Wade has details of the controversy and a story that you will see only here on Fox. David.
Well, Bishop Joseph DELANEY of Texas admits he hired 2 local priests, one of whom was jailed for stealing from the church. The other, Father Thomas Teczar, was accused but never convicted of molestation. He was reportedly fined for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. It is Teczar's story that has a Gardner family fuming tonight. They say they were promised by the church that he would never again be a man of the cloth.
He got me alcohol. I had like 4 drinks.
John MACIOROWSKI thinks of one night when he thinks of Father Thomas Teczar. It was 1984. John was 15.
He did not sexually abuse me, but I mean, I believe that he tried to.
Buried by accusations of molestation and piles of letters from John's parents, Father Teczar was stripped of his faculties by the Diocese of Worcester, the equivalent of being suspended.
And at that time I asked if he could go to another diocese, and he says that he could never go without his permission, something that he would never give.
Teczar and a former Providence priest, a convicted embezzler, were both hired to do God's work in Texas. Today's Dallas Morning News put this Texas bishop on the firing line. He hired both priests. Bishop Joseph DELANEY says he knew about the alcohol incident, but had no idea that Father Teczar had to check into a molestation treatment center.
If any of the allegations that were made in the Dallas Morning News about Father Teczar are true, I deeply regret not having been aware of them, and in hindsight, I wished I had known more about Father Teczar's past before accepting him here for service.
Back in the Bay State, the MACIOROWSKIs say the Texas bishop knew full well he was hiring an accused sex abuser. They wrote letters of warning.
They also wrote to Rome.
So you know that he knew about these allegations.
I have the certified letter right here.
But DELANEY has his own letter, one similar to this. It's from the head of the Worcester Diocese, from the same bishop that allegedly promised the MACIOROWSKIs never to recommend Teczar to any diocese.
In fact, I have a letter from the vicar for priests in Worcester praising Father Teczar and saying what a great person he would be and how effective he'd be in our diocese.
Thomas Teczar has been back in the Bay State since 1993 and hasn't been allowed to work as a priest. He left Texas after refusing to answer questions from a grand jury investigating sex abuse in his church. A spokesperson for the Diocese of Worcester says Teczar is still under indefinite suspension. He told us he knew very little about the specifics of this case. I'm David Wade, Fox 25. Again, I'm David Wade, live in Uxbridge with one man's reaction to a priest who got a second chance.
The outrage of a Massachusetts family who said they were promised that a suspended priest accused of molesting a child would never work anywhere else. That promise was broken.
It was a story you saw only on Fox, and tonight another accuser has come forward. Fox 25 News reporter David Wade is following this case and joins us live with that man's story. David.
Maria, a can of worms seemingly has been torn wide open. Yesterday we learned how Father Teczar, a suspended Bay State priest, got a second chance in Texas. Tonight we talked to a Webster man who is currently suing Teczar. He says he was victimized right here at St. Mary's Church in Uxbridge.
I was really a very serious Catholic when I was a kid. I loved going to church.
On the beachfront of Lake Webster is Dave Lewcon. Here he lives alone with 25 years of guilt and anger, emotions blamed on his old priest, Father Thomas Teczar.
And he'd get me drunk, and then he'd offer to give me a back rub, and then he just worked his way down.
In the 70s, similar accusations chased Father Teczar from church to church. He was never convicted on sex charges, but in the 80s, this man came forward.
Got me alcohol. I had like 4 drinks.
The Worcester Diocese would then indefinitely suspend Teczar and allegedly promise this family that he'd never again wear the cloth.
They were just trying to farm him out of this area and hoping he would just go away.
Fast forward to yesterday, a Texas bishop admits he hired Teczar in the late 80s, denies he knew Teczar's past, and defends himself with a letter from the Worcester Diocese that recommended the suspended priest.
Well, it's another example of the church going way out of its way to protect the child molesters.
Abuse victim Phil Saviano says he knows how it goes. He runs the local branch of a victim support group. His alleged abuser, another priest, also went from Mass to Texas, but ended up in jail. Saviano is the one who called the Dallas press about Teczar's hiring down south.
The bishops, instead of transferring these guys out of state, should have transferred them right out of the priesthood.
Back to Dave Lewcon. He's suing Father Teczar for what allegedly happened years ago. He wants accountability for Teczar to stand up and to admit what he allegedly did.
Every time I see a priest, not just something to do with Tom Teczar, I get that little jolt inside.
Officials in Texas right now are trying to find out if Father Teczar victimized any kids in Texas. He left Texas in 1993 as a grand jury began investigating some of his associates on sex abuse charges. Now he lives in nearby Dudley, Mass. He is no longer a priest. We stopped by his house today trying to get a comment from him, but a neighbor who was watching his house told us that he is away on vacation. As far as that letter of recommendation that got him that job down in Texas, that was written by Bishop Harrington of the Diocese of Worcester. He has since passed away. Live in Uxbridge, I'm David Wade, Fox 25 News.